that our actions heavily influence almost to the point of creating the environment, whether or not we intend it, right? So we don't intend to harm players, but we might be harming them. So when tens of millions of people buy our game, we're pumping a substance into the environment, and I don't just mean the packaging. I mean the mental, content of that game. This is a public mental health issue, and that's kind of scary if you take it seriously, but it's also kind of cool because it means that we have the power to shape humanity. It means that we in this room are very powerful people, and how are we going to use that power, right? What are we going to do with it? And what I see right now is that we're kind of doing this, right? We're cultivating this style of gamer that just says, I want more of that, because it tastes delicious, and that's all I know. And what's the world going to be like if we do this, right? I mean, on the food front and on the mental front, right? I haven't actually seen Idiocracy, but it's something like that. So a lot of you might be thinking, well, I work on this big game, and I don't have that much power to control the design. It's like it's being made by a publicly held company. Like, certain things have to happen. And all I have to say there is, if you can make one small improvement in that game to somehow make it more worthwhile or more beneficial or less meaningless, if you can win one argument in a meeting, like one time, or convince one programmer to do an extra thing for you, think about the multiplier, right? Your game goes out to millions or tens of millions of people, and that small improvement has affected all of them, right? That's pretty cool. So you can even make a difference on a 150 or 200 person team. Okay, enough of that. Sort of. I'm going to go on to a new point, which is sort of hooks into what does it mean to create meaningful or interesting gameplay, and how can I find that kind of gameplay? And part of the problem is that I think we have assumptions about what it means to design a game that are a little bit incorrect. I think that we have this presumption of architecture right now. And what I mean by that is that we start with a plan, and we go top down, and the process of game development is about imposing our will on the art assets and the code. And often our plans were ambitious, and 2/3 of the way through the project we can't get it all done, and we have to cut features, and it's all painful and stuff. But this is the way that we do things, right? But through my past couple of projects, I've become acutely aware of another way to do things, which is exploring, right? You can be adaptive and unhierarchical. You can start out with a cool idea, but then just start developing it and see where it goes, and adapt and accept it, and find the best thing that's there. And this is related to what I was saying earlier about using games as a method of exploring the universe, right? You can develop a really good game by exploring the ramifications of a concept, and I'll have some examples of that later. So first I want to talk about how architecture can fail us, and to do that I'm going to talk about how much Bioshock sucks. I'm confident that a lot of people in this room played Bioshock and really liked it, and I could probably convince you a lot better if I picked a game that nobody likes. But that just seemed too easy and kind of cheap. So here we go. Bioshock. As the PR people for Bioshock spent a lot of time hyping to the press prior to its release, one of the big things that happens in this game is there's these creatures called the Big Daddy and the Little Sister, right? And the Big Daddy is really tough to kill, and he protects this Little Sister who has this valuable resource that you want to get to buy upgrades and all that. And what you're supposed to do in Bioshock is kill the Big Daddy and capture the Big Sister, and then decide at that point, do you want to kill the Little Sister and steal all of her resource, which you can't do without killing her, right? Or do you rescue her, and which is kind of altruistic because you don't get any of the resource, or actually you get less of the resource, which is a bit less of a statement. But it's supposed to be this big ethical dilemma, and they played this up as the unique selling point of Bioshock. So you would think, I was phrasing things earlier about in terms of the meaning of life. You would think that thus the meaning of life in Bioshock is about this moral choice. Do I save the Little Sisters and be weaker in the world, or do I rescue, or do I kill them and be stronger? But as players figured out very rapidly after the game was released, that's not actually the meaning of life in Bioshock, because as it turns out, it doesn't really matter whether you rescue or kill the little sisters, because the game throttles the rewards either way. I'm not going to go into the details, in fact. But what happened was they came in also with this so the very idea of this save or kill moral dilemma is a kind of architected idea imposed from the top. Let's make a game with this moral dilemma in it. There's this other architected idea imposed from the top, which is a shooter needs to be well balanced, right? No matter what path you choose, we need to ensure that the difficulty matches the player's skill level and stuff. These two things conflict really badly, right? Because as I was saying before, the game rules determine the actual meaning of life in the game. And the game rules in this game say that the little sisters don't matter, right? Whatever you do to them, you get a slightly different flavor of upgrades either way, that's all. But yet the game is trying really hard to convince you that they matter. There's all these animations and they go, no, no, when you grab them, which you pretty much have to do, and all this dramatic lighting and stuff. And the ultimate message ends up being like a meta message that tunnels up one level and says the designers of this game are trying to manipulate your emotions in a clumsy way because they can't get their story together. They're obviously not trying to give me an authentic experience about what it means to be altruistic, because there is no altruism in this game. But it gets worse than that, because when you really start looking at it, not from a gamer's perspective, it is a really weird game. Okay. It's supposedly about altruism and humanity, but it actually teaches you to headshot everyone without warning from as far away as possible. Because you're supposed to shoot every creature in this game, right? They even start out, and there's a couple of guys, they're supposedly like drunk people having a domestic dispute or whatever, but it turns out they're splicers and they kill you. Like, anybody that you can shoot in this game, you're pretty much supposed to shoot, with the exception of one. Everybody else is bulletproof. And the second interesting point is that the only people who are bulletproof in this game are women and preteen girls, which is weird. I guess they pretty much presumed that the average player was going to be male, and they would think that the sexy ex-Nazi chick was kind of hot. And the preteen girls, you give them another 8 to 10 years, they'll probably be pretty hot. So you understand why they're valuable. No, really. The little sister is supposed to be valuable, but you're supposed to just shoot the big daddy, right? But he's totally, actually, much more sympathetic. He's a very protective character, right? He walks around, he makes these sort of mournful, moans like a big whale or something, and you're just supposed to kill him without even thinking about it, right? This game screws up in so many ways. If you went to somebody, if you took this game to somebody outside of games, like somebody well steeped in philosophy, and said, here's what games have produced, this marvelous ethical dilemma, of altruism or not, they would laugh at you. They would be like, what are you talking about? This is so weird, right? You couldn't even show it to you couldn't show it to your mom, probably, right? Your mom would be like, wow, you really need to get out and meet some nicer people. And she would be right. That is the hard part of this, is that she would be right. Bioshock only makes sense to us, right? So many people in the press and so many gamers on message boards only bought into it because of what I was talking about before. Because we're steeped in this tradition of games that don't have this level of humanity and don't have this respect for human life or thoughtfulness about what they're doing. We have been conditioned by all those games. So as soon as a game comes along that does something a little bit different, or purports to do something a little bit different, even though it does it very badly, we're like, whoa, humanity. No. It's so bad. Okay, so a game that did well, again, is Portal, and I would claim that it's because it had a healthy dose of exploration in the design, but it was also augmented by architecture, right? So the idea behind Portal is that you have this little gun that instead of shooting bullets, it makes dimension doors on various walls, and you can walk through them and you can see through them, right? And it's basically then, what are the laws of physics like in this world where you can create portals, right? What kind of interesting situations arise? And then there are puzzles that they architected, but those puzzles are largely about showcasing these natural results of having portals, right? It doesn't feel contrived. And so Portal is kind of magical that way. I could say a lot more about it, but I'm skipping ahead. So then I want to go to this issue of humanity and empathizing with a character in a game, right? So Bioshock has the little sister who you're kind of supposed to empathize with as being helpless. It's this very architected choice, right? Do you save the little sister or kill the little